Let me get to it. Thank you very much. Where's the DJ? Where's the DJ? Cut the music. Yeah. So walking out. So we're in the middle of votes, and I apologize. You know, people always ask me, when are you going to vote in the Senate? And I always tell them we're going to start voting right before I have some event or place to be. That's always the way it works out. And funny enough, this is a personal gripe. Can I do a personal gripe just for it's all right. It take 10 seconds. Like when a few of us ran for president about 4 years ago. Rand did, myself, Ted. They never once changed the schedule because we were running for president. They didn't care if you had a debate. They didn't care about any of that. We have to delay a vote till tomorrow so their candidates, all 52 of them, can get back from Miami after. And by the way, including the ones that were there last night, they're still not back. The debate, they should leave, right? We don't want them hanging around Miami. But anyway, I know that the theme is the road to the majority, and I can tell you, all you got to do is watch last night and watch tonight, and then you'll see why it's so important. Pretty startling events last night. The first is they asked them, two of the people on the stage, including the one who on that stage has the highest poll numbers, Elizabeth Warren, wants to get rid of all private health insurance in the country, get rid of all of it. And beyond the philosophical argument in the end, the ideological argument about it, the practical implications. There's actually one of the people on the stage there last night, one of the guys running, I don't know who he is. He made a good point there. He said, if you talk to the hospitals, every single one of them would close. Who was it? John Delaney. There you go. I'm learning all these names. The problem is by the time I learn them all, half of them will be out of the race. So, but he made, it was actually a pretty good point. And, the people that make sense, they had him all the way at the end, at the line. But on that point, he was right. That's a very radical position. And you could tell some of the other people up there don't think it's a good idea, but they're squirming because they know, if they say the wrong thing, the whole base will turn against them. And then the one that was really fascinating was what would you do on the first day with this immigrant crisis on the border, okay? And let me just say, every single person, I know every person in the room saw that image the other night of that father and that little girl. It's a heartbreaking thing. Because I think just at a human level, you understand, these are desperate people leaving a desperate situation. It is my view that the answer to their problems is not a dangerous 3-country journey at the hands of the most dangerous trafficking networks on the planet. And that we shouldn't have any public policy that encourages that. And ironically enough, there's a lot of complaints out there about the way people are being treated. Look, none of these places that are housing these people were built for this purpose. This is something we're doing out of an emergency because of the huge uptick. And then we say, well, we need money to improve the conditions, because these things cost money. Well, you can't have money to improve the conditions, but we want you to improve the conditions. So and on top of that, instead of being here voting on a bill to improve the conditions, half of them stayed back to do a protest and all these sorts of things. So it's my view that if you're a member of the Senate, you don't need to be at protest. You need to be voting and working and making things happen. So we'll see what happens on that. But the startling moment was when they asked them, what would you do on day one? Not a single one of them had an answer to that question. Not one of them had an answer for what they would do to stem this tide. That's bad for the people coming. It's bad for the countries they're leaving from. It's bad for Mexico, and it's certainly something we cannot sustain. The problem is they don't have an answer to any of this. A few of them answered it in Spanish, so I can tell you they didn't have an answer in Spanish either. And I think one of them, he tried, Cory Booker, people keep saying Booker spoke in Spanish. It sounded more like Portuguese, to be honest with you. But anyway. So it was good. So you got to watch it, and you'll understand what's at stake here in the Senate races, certainly for the White House. It's critically important because it's a pivot moment in our history, and for reasons that perhaps you don't fully understand, I got to be quick. I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version of it. American politics since the end of the Second World War has been guided by sort of a national consensus. Some of them people are to the left of that consensus, some to the right, but a general consensus that global trade and economics was generally good, that our alliances overseas were important, and that there were certain cultural and societal norms infused by Judeo-Christian principles that by and large were not just mainstream and morally right, but good for the country. That consensus after 70 years has been shattered, and we have a debate on every single one of them. And if you are a conservative, you seek to conserve the things that are good and right about our country. But you try to apply them to the challenges of the moment. All three of those are being challenged by both the left and the right, by the way. On the issue of our economics, we need to wake up to the reality that we're no longer engaged in competitions between American companies and Chinese companies. We're in a national competition. I'll give you a perfect example, okay? People talk about Huawei. Let me give you a better, probably more startling one. The Chinese have a rail car company. They build railroads and mass transit systems. And you look at every community in America that's trying to build one of these, and they're the bidder, and they're going to probably win most of those bids. They're the cheapest one. Why are they the cheapest one? Because the Chinese government is funding them, giving them easy credit, plus telling them, don't worry about competition in China. You've got this market cornered. So they have a monopoly in the largest, most populous country in the world, and government support at extraordinary levels. They can come in and undercut our businesses. And some people will say, well, that's a good thing. That means we're going to be paying less. No, it's not a good thing. I'll tell you why it's not a good thing. Because it's going to wipe out all the American companies that do that work. And then we're going to wake up one day in a world where we don't know how to build rail cars or robotics. We already can't manufacture our own medicines. They say, well, invent it here, they'll build it there. Well, building and inventing go hand in hand. And by the way, that inventing part, that building part brings with it good jobs. And the consensus would say, well, those good jobs will leave, but better ones will take their place. Maybe, but not for the people who lost the jobs. Not unless you want, at 55 years of age, you plan to become a software designer and move to Silicon Valley, where you were once an auto worker or worked in construction or in manufacturing. So there is a fairness argument with our economy, and there is also an argument about our national interests. We have to be a country that makes things, because if we cannot make things, then we are at the whim of any country in the world that decides we're cutting you off. No more of this for you. We can't allow that to happen, just from a national security perspective. And so is the answer to that socialism? Of course it's not. The answer to that is still free enterprise and limited government. That is what we seek to conserve, but it has to be applied within the context of the unique challenges of the 21st century and the recognition that free trade and free enterprise works. I'm not getting emotional about this. I'm just talking too fast because I'm trying to be quick with you. Maybe I'm a little emotional. Write down that he was emotional about economic policy, but But I say this to you because it has to be within the context of the fact that free enterprise works, but it also depends on free enterprise from both sides. If one side is cheating and one side is not, that's not free enterprise, that's cheating. Second, real quick, on the issue of our role in the world, America, we are today engaged in a global competition of freedom versus tyranny. It's happening all over the planet. China and others are going to countries and saying, look, we're rich, and we don't have all these societal problems that America has. Of course, they have censored media. If you speak out against anything, you go to jail. So yeah, they've got some of that under control, I suppose. But that's because if you don't agree with it, you're in jail, or you're dead, or you're in exile. And so for a lot of countries, it's appealing to them. And the problem with that is, not only do dictatorships start wars, but we don't want to wake up one day and be the only free country on the planet, because then our own freedom will be endangered. So it is important that America is engaged in the world in a smart way, in a different way. We need alliances in Asia to counter China, and the Middle East to counter Iran and radical Islam, even in the Western Hemisphere, where China is trying to establish a dominant position. But we need to be smart and strategic about how we do it. The last one is the one I think that doesn't get enough attention, and that is the norms of our society. And I would say to you that we are a country that people are free to believe anything they want. But there are things that are true, and they remain true whether you believe them or not. For example, it is true, but you cannot have a strong country without strong people. And it is also true that you cannot have strong people without strong families and strong communities. And so we need to be for policies and to defend institutions that strengthen the family. There's no more important job in America than the job of a parent. To the extent we can, we need to have policies that support families and support the role and empower the role of parents. Empower the role of parents to pick what school their children go to have opportunities. The second is based on our Constitution, and that is the right of every single American, not just to believe whatever you want, not just the freedom to worship as you choose, but to live the principles of your faith in your own life. And to do so without retribution, to do so without being ostracized. In essence, I would argue to many that tolerance is a two-way street. Right now, it's only a one-way street, and it is not moving in the direction of those that believe in traditional values and the principles that our nation was founded on. Anybody here been censored by YouTube or Twitter yet? Yeah. Have you really? Oh, I've tried so hard. But I'm kidding. I haven't really tried that hard. But anyway, so here, I'll wrap up with this. A lot of people would look at these changes and be really distressed by them. And I would say to you, let me tell you, change is always happening. Always. In fact, if there's one thing history teaches us is that every generation thinks the next generation is really messed up. I mean, that's just true. But I'm not saying we don't have real challenges that need to be confronted. I am optimistic. I believe America's going to be okay, but not just because we wish it to be. There are things we're going to have to do. And what we're going to have to do is what our parents and the generations that preceded us did. And that's confront our challenges. And that's embrace our opportunities. And that's do the things that need to be done. And it's going to take some time. But we're in the middle of doing it, and you're a big part of that. And it begins by electing the right people. Because in the realm of public policy, it comes down to, more often than not, do you have the number of votes or not to pass something? Today, the Supreme Court of the United States, for the first time, I believe, certainly in 25 years, has a majority of people who believe that the Constitution should be applied as it was originally intended, not the way, whatever it is you want it to mean, because of you. Today, the federal judiciary is populated with over 100 district and circuit court judges who believe the same thing. Many of them are under the age of 45, which means they'll be there a long time because of you. Today, America's economy is more competitive because of tax cuts made possible because of you. All of that goes away, all of it, if 2020 goes in the wrong direction. Frankly, if the president's not reelected and we lose the Senate majority and they keep the House, all these things that we've just achieved over the last 3.5 years won't just be gone, they'll be reversed. And that cannot be allowed to happen. So let's not rest on our laurels. Let's keep working hard. Thank you for what you've done already. There's a lot of work to be done. Thank you and God bless. Thank you. Thank you very much.